we can probably get going.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay,
You were.
I will call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Note that is our solstice meeting. December 21st, first day of winter. Cold outside, no snow. Does anyone want to lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
And do the honors again.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with justice and liberty for all.
Thank you. Okay, next, our first order of business is the approval of the minutes from November 16th, 2023, our monthly business meeting. We have
I'm having a hard time hearing the room. Can anybody else that's virtual hear?
Hi, Alish. We have Corey and Ted also.
I can hear. It's very light, but I can hear.
I can hear fine.
Okay, we're just having reviewing the minutes of November 16th, 2023, this business meeting. Is there a motion to approve the November 16th, 2023 minutes? Bill? Is there a second? No. Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes from November 2023? Please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that passes at 6:03 p.m. All right, the next order is the minutes of the special meeting. Yeah, it's special meeting, November 6th, 2023. I think there might be some abstentions on that.
Should be Bill and Vanessa, and just as an FYI, I'm doing Jenna's duties, so the minutes is my first time doing the minutes, so if there are mistakes, please point them out. Do the best I can.
Okay. I have a motion to approve the Board of Trustees special business meeting on December 6th, 2023. Is there?
Yeah, I'm
Second?
Okay, is there any discussion, knowing that there are some?
Yeah.
Discussion.
My remembrance is, and Barbara, I think all of us talked about this, we weren't really the search committee. We were the ad hoc committee to do two things. One was put together a posting for the job of Library Director 3, and the other was to put on paper a proposed process for the search committee. So, I mean, I don't think any of us are adverse to being the search committee. It's something to discuss, but we were not the search committee. And the other thing is that we had a discussion about including staff and foundation representatives on the committee, but we did not decide that that was going to be the case because we weren't the search committee hasn't been pictured.
So,
Barbara, I think your remembrance is the same.
I thought we had created a search committee, but maybe not. So there's is there any further discussion about these minutes?
I can amend them, but if you want to make a motion to approve them as amended, and I'll just send a revised version of the discussion on that motion.
That it's the ad hoc?
Right, that it's
Ad
the
hoc
ad hoc instead of the search committee, and that although it was discussed, no staff or commission members are part of that committee right now.
As I recall it, we had said that the ad hoc committee should just be a board committee because it was, figuring out the process and doing all that stuff so we could move fast. And that part of the process could be to figure out, at what point the staff would be, brought in and participate in the process. Yeah, so I might just strike that line that just says the committee should also include staff representation.
All right, so I'll just, we'll call it ad hoc committee, and then I'll strike that second sentence.
Is there any further discussion about these minutes? All in favor of the minutes as amended by secretary? Please say aye.
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 Hi.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Great. 607. All right. Okay. Is there any public input for this evening?
I don't have anything to share.
Okay. All right, personnel. Okay. Personnel actions considered. This is for new hires. Christopher Walcott hired 12/13/23, new hires part-time library. CPS. Wilsonia Ocasio hired 12/06/23, she hired former secretary as full-time librarian 1 for PPS adult. Jacob Harden hired 11/29/23, new hire to full-time library assistant for PPS youth. And then we have Roseanne Marcantonio, term date 11/20/23, retired from role as part-time senior library clerk in CCF. And John Lorang resigned, resignation date of 1/2/24, resigning from technology assistant role in IT department. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel actions as so stated?
So moved.
Barbara and Marcia, second. Okay, any discussion on the personnel actions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the personnel actions as so stated, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. And the- is that 09. All right. Next order of business is treasurer's report for October 2023. We have that in writing. Is there anything to add to this written report? Yeah.
No, it's kind of business as usual, and of course, George reviewed it. He's unable to be with us tonight due to a 49th wedding anniversary, but he had one question. I think would be more of a, did you just ask about the check register or the treasurer's?
Treasurer's report.
Yeah, his one question that he brought up to me was about the check register, and so I'll mention that when we get there. But otherwise, it's kind of a business as usual report.
Okay, we have a check register for,
Fine.
I just had one question. I don't know if you know anything about this, but I think it was last month that I think George had reached out to an attorney about the bond issue and the accounting issue. And I wondered if you knew if we've heard anything back. Has there been any?
I have not heard anything. I've had some discussions. Corey's raising her hand, so Corey was following up. So Corey, over to you.
Sure. So I just had some email communication with George yesterday, and he is following up with the attorney. She has not yet done it, and we hope to have it early in the new year.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
okay.
Just a question. Last month, I mentioned the fact that would we consider, or would the finance committee consider taking at least half the monies that we got from the school district and putting them into CDs? And since that time, if you listen to any of the business channels, they're all predicting almost unanimously that the interest rates will be going down after January. So if they would, I just would ask the finance committee to really reconsider whether or not we want to leave all our money in this money market thing, which right now is at 4-something%. But you have CDs that are in the 5% range. You know, on $1 million, that 1% is a lot of money. So I would just throw that out and ask if they would seriously take a look.
Can I address that a little bit? Like, I can't speak for the finance committee, but we did have a CD mature, actually 2 mature at Broadview. And Jackie and I talked to Jim Ferranda, and on that particular day, CDs were more remunerative than anything else. So we simply invested in new CDs because we didn't need it for cash flow. And that's what we plan to do as things mature over the short term, is find out on that day, because obviously you also don't want to let them sit without money, without interest, you know. But on that particular day, Jim said that CDs were better than anything else he had. So we did a CD at 5 quarters.
That's
I
just,
just mentioned something,
Okay.
which is our obligation
Mhm.
with, under the Crossgates litigation,
Okay.
that they, litigation got their assessment lowered during the pandemic. You know, when retail was very, challenged. So I think our share of it might be in the several $100,000 range. So I'm not sure what, yeah. So, I don't know what we have in reserves or, available money. So I just throw that out there just because, you know, putting all our money in CDs, you know,
Sure.
is great, except, I'm not sure when this needs to be paid.
In that particular case, it was before the Crossgates thing. It was like 10 days ago. And I've been hearing about the Crossgates settlement. I still haven't seen any articles, but I've been hearing from the school district about our share, which incidentally, they now think it's closer to 250 than 295. But I wouldn't take any number as final until it's final. And I don't know what that means. It's just that it's changed several times as I heard about it. In terms of paying that, I think it is probably a matter for the finance committee agenda, I would guess, you know, so, or the full board agenda. But presumably, I'm kind of speaking for you, Corey, but presumably the finance committee would meet before the next full board meeting. And I would guess that'll be kind of settled within a month. I don't know. You know? I mean, I think it's settled now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, it's a kind of a big hit to the school district, I guess, because it's a very, high value, place, but.
We're smaller, so it hits us less.
Still a big.
Yeah, except we don't participate in it like the school district does. So we just kind of are like told, oh, this happened, now you have to pay this, so I think it's a little bit confusing for us, but what do I know? So,
I'll make sure both the bond issue or the Crossgates issue and the CDs and interest rates are on the finance agenda for next month.
And I should correct myself. I said Jackie and I, but I believe it was Jackie, David and I that were on the phone with Jim Brandon. So.
all right. So moving on to the check register. I don't think we have a copy of it, but I have it on my phone because it has.
No.
I don't think so, but it is available.
I have it in my packet actually. So yeah, which David placed in my mailbox. So it might be in your mailbox.
Oh,
But
maybe it's okay. More.
I could go ahead if I may and bring up George's question.
Sure.
While people are finding it. So as George in his inimitable style put it in an email, you don't often see checks made out to cash, and you don't often see checks made out to cash for $10,000. So he was like, well, what's that? And what that is that we decided to purchase an ATM machine and install it in the lobby, as opposed to licensing an ATM machine with a bank. We analyzed the two options, and it was cheaper to buy our own, and it has that amount of cash in it. So that's our fiscal office will manage that cash and, what's the word? Empty it. There's a word that starts with an A, but, basically square it up once a month. And keep an eye on that. So that check was to the bank to establish the cash for the ATM machine. And since we had recently gone back to charging for photocopies, and secondarily because there's a cafe in the building, we thought it would be a nice service to people that have an ATM. In terms of other questions about the ATM, when you're the owner of an ATM, you have a wide latitude about what to charge, but much like we did with the charging stations out in the parking lot, we kept the fee very, very minimal. So it's a $1 fee to withdraw. And I must be honest and say, I presume that $1 goes to us, but I really haven't answered that question yet. But there's no way it can go to anyone else because, there's processing fees. So some portion of that dollar would be part of the expense related to owning an ATM machine, but we should be making a small amount of money. So,
Tim, did you guys have a lot of requests for an ATM machine or?
no, we had been talking about it ever since the reopening, and we got around to doing it. Actually, Sean headed up the research and so forth. A lot of banks didn't want to put one in here. They didn't think the foot traffic warranted.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Yep. So we may, in a year or two, we may sell an ATM machine. I don't know. But it was, I think, approximately $3,000. Is that correct, Sean?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, and then whatever it costs us to maintain. So,
You should notify our insurance agent that we have one.
yep. I think I have, but I'll make myself a note to double check on that.
So was that the only question
That was the only one George raised. So.
ATM, huh? In case anybody wants to order a lot from the cafe, and don't have enough cash.
I think as a patron, I appreciate that
Mhm.
because a lot of times I don't get to the bank, I don't have cash, I have to go somewhere and they want cash. And I don't want stuff at the bank, but I'm very often here, so that's actually, for me, anyway, that's a really good thing. And then you might have cash to leave tips for the cafe, I guess, that sounds nice.
Farmers market.
Right.
So with that, explanation. Is there a motion to approve the check registers for the period from November 14th, 2023 to December 18th, 2022? Is there a motion? Marcia, is there a second? Bill? Okay, and is there any more discussion about the check register? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the check register so stated, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is anyone
Aye.
opposed? Great, bring no opposition, pass it at 6:21. Great, so. Well, we are at the directors and department heads reports. Yes.
Yes. Myself, I've been working mostly with Nate and Natalie on the reorganization, filling Jenna's vacancy. I'm sort of leading a senior citizen group that Jack Brennan founded here on Wednesdays. And Ken Harris, Guilderland citizen, retired from the Albany Guardian Society, and Kathy Sazarin of our staff are helping with that. It's been a very nice turnout. And then we had a staff-wide de-escalation training with the Guilderland Police Department during the last month. In Natalie's report, she mentions that the Sunshine Committee, which I just want to quickly remind you, we can't spend any public money on things like flowers for someone who's had a death in the family, or a baby gift for someone who has a baby, et cetera. So we do things to raise money like bus trips and so forth, and craft fairs. So there's a spring craft fair fundraiser on Saturday, March 9th. The fall one was quite successful. And so folks in this room are welcome to, as they did before, volunteer at the event or create a raffle basket that would then be raffled off to raise money. During November, the NYLA, New York Library Association Annual Conference took place, and both in Saratoga, and both Natalie and Nate were heavily involved with both attending and hosting it. There were quite a few other staff members that went, 5 or 6 other librarians that went up to the conference. And then in Nate's assistant director report, it has a great discussion of the complexity of the reorganization process. I don't remember which board member, but a month or 2 ago, that was you, Marcia, okay, had asked for a presentation about that. And we have pushed that back twice. Or once, I think we were going to do it in December, and we have not been able to do that. So we hope to do that in January. I do want to, if you haven't had time to read it, direct you, especially to Nate's report and Sean's, which I'll talk about in a minute. But Nate, you've been a wonderful hire so far. He's just really excellent at daily written communication, writing documentation, and very organized individual. Sends a weekly email to all staff about what is going on. And he's a whiz with software and spreadsheets. So welcome, even though it seems like you've been here longer than you have. Welcome aboard. For the IT department, a couple of interesting things. John Lorang, who's the staff member who was over here getting us started, John is leaving us, and after 8 years, and Sean, you may want to correct me, but I think what John is going to do is basically run IT for the 7 branches of the Schenectady Public Library. So a significantly higher position. Is that fairly accurate? Yeah, okay. And so he's been a great contributor. Like 1 or 2 of you may have, and it may have been these 2, were probably on the board once when I was talking about Nate. If you go to our website, there's this plug-in thing that rotates the cover images of a bunch of books that people think are, they're hot books right now, and we're trying to promote the library's use. And the way that you put that on your website in most cases is to pay $5,000 for somebody to give you that software. But John just wrote his own, and in fact wrote it as open source software so that not only could we use it, but other libraries could use it for free, saving them some money. So great stuff there. And then I really liked what Sean did with his report, which is to give you an annual report in the month of December as opposed to a monthly report. And it's really a good idea to review. So many people, and I'm certainly not saying this about board members, but so many members of the general public believe that running a library is a very, very simple thing. But just running an IT department in a library is sort of mind-blowingly complex. So a couple of things I'll call out from that are the ATM, which we just talked about. And then we have a new security camera system, which has more cameras outside, and I believe more inside because we didn't have a security system in the youth area as part of the renovation. But its real contribution to what we're doing here is that it is incredibly sharp video compared to previous generations. So you actually can see a person walk in the front door and identify who the person is, which was kind of hard before. There's some stats in his report. So from November last year to November this year, the use of our website is up 56%. And our remote print jobs over the same period. So this is printing something from home or from somewhere else and then coming here to pick it up, are up 96%. And then our public computer use is up 10%, which is a significant number. Although if you follow 96 and 56 with 10, it doesn't sound quite as significant. And then they closed 98% more tickets this November than last November. And what that means is when there's something of an IT nature needed by a staff member, they write a ticket, which is a notification that something needs to be figured out and fixed. In the circulation department, everything is up again this month, except for kids and YA, which makes sense since school is going on. And in the YS Youth Services Department, we had a quote, imagination invasion in the month of November, led by Jocelyn Wilder, and everybody in the department participated. And one person not in the department participated. Elish loaned a lot of dinosaur-related paraphernalia to the library, so that helped. In adult services, we were able to hire 3 new staff members over that month, which has really helped. And they held tons of programs, which you can read about in your report. Jill Tomanowski and Maria Buell are responding to a state mandate to basically write your library's history. So they've been working on that and basically got it drafted and sent off to the state. And all of the year-end stats for adult services are very good as well. In the Public Information Office, headed by Luann, we have an excellent newsletter open rate, holding steady, I believe, at 55%. And there's this nice laundry list of groups that we've collaborated with here locally, including Town Hall, the Guilderland Senior Center, the YMCA, the Caring Closet, Community Caregivers, Albany County, Writers Institute, Albany Guardian Society. I mentioned the town with the Town Senior Center, Food Pantry, and the Chamber of Commerce. A lot of that is being done by Luann, so excellent work, Luann. In the maintenance department, we built a comfort room in a back area that is a place for, its primary purpose is lactation for those who need to take care of that. Now, I've responded to emails related to this. My understanding through Chris Lanchanton of the, and Sarah, you may want to correct me, we are mandated by law to have such a space for employees, but not necessarily for staff. So we're currently considering that, or excuse me, for staff, but not necessarily for the public. So we're currently have a staff member who's using that and haven't even addressed the issue yet of whether the public might want to use that. Let's see, there's a chronic roof leak, which if you're Kathy, you can see very well right here. So we think, and Bill can see it, we think we've got that fixed, or excuse me, diagnosed. And we're having a new sheet of petroleum installed underneath the roof, or petroleum sheeting to try to fix that. And then we'll get that column painted up. The landscaping that was part of the renovation project has finally been finished. And thanks to Megan Brennan for keeping on the landscaping company, which was kind of a victim of, there's a lot of businesses that have not been able to fully hire. So when you don't have people working for you, it's hard to do the work. But it has been a significant headache to stay on top of these folks and get all that done. So it's finally done. The cafe is going very, very well, but we have had, including this week, some occasional negative comments delivered to the owner, Melanie, who's often in there working. And they appeared to me and Alicia and Melanie and Luann sat down. We all sat down the other day. They appeared to be founded on a misunderstanding of the rental relationship between the cafe and the library. So in particular, the person who came in the other day was a bit irate at the owner and first of all demanded to see the owner. And Melanie said, well, I am the owner, so how can I help you? But, they're aware of the rent that's being charged over here. And they're unaware that it's the same rent that the Guilderland Farmers Market is paying to use the parking lot outside. But they think that the cafe is getting 750 square feet for the same amount that a single vendor within the farmers market pays, which is, I believe, $40. So it's very, very close. So we wish we could get back to this person and explain that they're laboring under a misunderstanding. And to that extent, we've been thinking about, talked to Mel today, we are thinking about writing something up about the business relationship between the cafe, the farmers market, and the library, and possibly putting that on our website. Mel had an idea today to our website, or possibly sending to the enterprise and saying, there's a little bit of misunderstanding about the nature of this arrangement, so we want to clarify. And then, Elish, what Mel came up with today when I was chatting with her is that she may want to, offer like have a coffee with Mel in the cafe kind of thing for anybody who has some questions about the nature of this business arrangement so that it can be explained. But anyway, it was a, I don't want to say it was a heated exchange because only the patron was heated. So Melanie handled it very well, stayed cool. But then once the lady left, it was kind of a difficult thing for her. She's working hard in there. So we kind of want to somehow get the word out so that people don't have misunderstandings about that business.
What's the lady complaining about?
Well, it was, first of all, I wasn't there, so I'm hearing it secondhand from Melanie, so I might be losing a little bit there, but she said stuff to the effect of, the phrase she used was cheaters never prosper. You're paying the same as some vendor is paying to be in the farmer's market, yet you have all this space. And actually, she's paying the exact same thing that the farmer's market owner is paying per month. But I think she got that piece of information somehow, like maybe at the farmer's market, and she thinks that somebody with a table this size at the farmer's market is paying the exact same amount as somebody with 750 square feet inside. And she thinks that's unfair. It's a very
paying $40 for their table.
right. That's very close, but
Yeah.
close to the same amount. But the owner of the farmer's market pays the same monthly rent as.
He's the one we have the contract.
Yeah, right, yeah. So if we could let her know that these two businesses are on the same basis, perhaps that concern would be allayed. We mostly have had very positive responses to the presence of the cafe. We've got other issues that we've discussed in other meetings. There's an odor issue where we're waiting for a report from engineers that should come in mid-January to see if there's any way to mitigate that. We have the occasional person, like I'm not in there. If I'm in the cafe, usually it's for 2 or 3 minutes to grab a coffee, and every once in a while I eat lunch in there. So I've never seen a negative interaction, but I have heard from Mel that, occasionally people say to her that they'll say, well, I'm kind of old school and I don't think there should be a restaurant in a library. You know, and she says, well, thank you for sharing your opinion. And, you know, we could probably instruct her that if she wants to share that opinion with me or with the library board or with the public comment process, she's welcome to do that. She or he, whoever happens to be making that.
The other thing
complaint.
that Mel could also say is that this is here as a public service.
And she did, yeah.
She did.
Yep. Yep. So, and she explained to them that our legal counsel had advised us not to set market rent because that would make us a landlord and jeopardize our tax exempt status and so forth. And it's here as an amenity for the public. But Melanie just kind of wanted you folks made aware of the issue. And Alicia, of course, is aware because she's the chair of Buildings and Grounds. And the first thing either Melanie or I did once Melanie told me that this complaint had occurred was to text Alicia and get her in on the loop, you know, of that. So I don't think it's a huge problem, but I think, the other thing I would, since I'm speaking at a public meeting, hasten to remind the public in general, as opposed to one specific member of the public or an occasional specific member of the public, is that having a cafe in the library was generally the number one survey result for the renovation that people do. So we are giving the people what they expressed that they wanted. But not everybody voted yes for that in 2019.
And, you know, just, you know, who knows if this patron will, you know, be watching our meetings or anything, but I, you know, just to add a few things to it, I mean, there's a couple points, and one is that it's not as if this is a situation where there were, you know, dozens of businesses dying to have that space and we gave a sweetheart deal to one business. It was a long process just to get one single, you know, cafe that was willing to, you know, come in and serve the space. And, you know, the second piece of it is the entire process was driven by the library and our desire to have a cafe. It's not like we had some outside person coming in and saying, you know, pushing us to create a cafe because they wanted to get into the space. It was driven by the library as something to serve the patrons. So the idea that, you know, somebody is, you know, that there's some sort of, you know, unfairness. And then just, you know, on top of that, again, you know, the concern, you know, everything was whether there's, you know, enough foot traffic in the library to, you know, to support a cafe and to have enough business to have a viable business there. So, you know, anyone in that space is taking a risk and, you know, going in and, you know, and trying to do that. I don't know what the current status is or whether they're, you know, profitable at this point or whatever, but I mean, you know, I think, you know, any suggestion that this was some kind of, you know, that somebody's, you know, pulling a fast one, yeah, just seems ridiculous. So
I agree.
Can I just say, I think I appreciate the comments and being aware of the issue. Certainly, I think we should know what's going on if someone's complaining. But I think if there's one complaint, we should not write to the Altamont Enterprise and discuss our relationships. I think that person could come in, have discussion with you if they want to know exactly the ins and outs of the contract. I don't think it's a secret. I don't think we said we're going to seal it or keep it confidential. But certainly we can have a reasonable discussion with them. I don't think it requires articles published about it. And it is a public meeting. All our meetings are public. We can certainly find out. They will go back to the minutes and see what was discussed. I think we shouldn't give this too much attention. It's one person. Certainly I appreciate the feedback, but I don't think we should make it a big deal.
I happened to walk into the cafeteria at the tail end of this, and Mel indicated to me that there have been a number of incidences about questioning her ethnicity, things like that. And we had talked about putting a sign up that says that we will not tolerate harassment or anyone who comes in and makes someone feel uncomfortable or puts them in jeopardy. You know, like you see in a doctor's office, for instance. So I would suggest to you that that would probably be a good idea.
I would like to do that as well in the library space to support the library staff. While in general, it's a pretty smooth ship around here. There are isolated incidents where people are yelled at and so forth. And, you know, it's often over misunderstandings or, they're in any service related interaction. Sometimes one of the two parties is having a bad day, or both of the two parties are having a bad day. But I think we maybe should ask Chris Lanchanton for the standard language that's posted in doctor's offices and so forth. And just post it, near the service desks and then in the cafe as well. It's, there's a way to get the legal writing right, but also to just kind of say, can we be civil here? Can we just be neighbors and, treat each other with respect? So I'm in favor of that. I don't know if that requires a board decision. I would suspect not, but.
Probably not for a sign, no. I mean, you guys can put up signs in the library without our approval, right?
Yep. So Alicia, I know you're having a upper respiratory issue. Is there anything you wanted to add on the cafe?
I think you covered a lot of it. I will say that I did field one of the particular people that gave sort of odd feedback about her nationality. And they I think that was less ill-willed as it was more ignorant, but somebody made a comment on like, oh, I like the Mexican thing that you're doing here, and I corrected them and said that the two owners were Puerto Rican and Filipino, and she goes, oh, are they visiting? So it was kind of a interesting comment. So I think there is, potentially, I don't know. I'm trying to think a little straight here, but yeah, there's been more than this one instance, and then just the misunderstanding around the cafe throughout, just the public and the staff. I don't know if, like I said, I was sort of on the team of like a statement can be made. I don't know whether it's via like our social media or the enterprise, but just to sort of circumvent future instances happening, because I feel bad that we worked so hard to get a vendor in here, and this vendor has hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. Like, if she were to ever leave, I don't think we'd ever get another vendor in here, because it's just been such a difficult and trying process that it would probably be a deterrent down the road. So I'd like to try to turn things to be successful sooner rather than later. As far as I knew on how the cafe is doing, it's a little bit better, but I wouldn't say like she's raking in money hand over fist, right? I know she has to be very lean on the staffing. She's often working herself, which, is a sign that things are still new and developing. And she's trying new menu items and new activities, and has also been met with sort of issues trying to develop her own programming and stuff like that as well. So I'll say it's not smooth sailing just yet, but we're trying to work out some of those kinks. But I'd like to try to get a better relationship between the cafe and the staff, as well as the cafe and the public. If there's any misunderstandings for why we brought this feature in, it wasn't for a financial gain or anything for anyone's part. It was as an amenity to the public.
I'm going to go a step further just because, Elish, you may not love me, but not everybody has heard this. So the patron you're talking about that questioned the ethnicity, did say, according to, I didn't hear it, but it was reported to me that they did say, are they visiting? And then followed that up with, you couldn't find anyone else. And that to me was the worst part of the comment. Like, it seems to suggest that we should have found, some farm family that's been in Guilderland since the Dutch were here, as opposed to an immigrant, second generation immigrant who grew up in Bethlehem, and whose parents came here from Puerto Rico. It takes all kinds in the world, and maybe that person was having a bad day, but that particular interaction happened during the grand opening. So kind of takes the wind out of a business owner's sails to have that conversation on your opening day. And I'd like to personally think that our community is better than that. You know, and I think it is better than that. But one person said something that, you know, hurt the people in the cafe. So, so you now probably know every incident we've heard about. I'd say it's 3 or 4 that I've been made aware of. I don't know if it's more from your perspective, Alicia.
Those are all the ones that I'm aware of, unless there's been like small things day to day. But as far as I know, we've kind of covered them. But yeah, I think our concern was to try to stop this trend because we looked at it as had it been another vendor, they might not have been getting the same line of questioning. So we're curious as to why, you know, she's had multiple businesses in multiple towns, never having this problem, and we're having multiple problems here. So we're just trying to figure out the root cause, right? And nip that in the bud. So yeah, I don't know if an enterprise article or I'm gravitating to a social media post and just saying, you know, just informative. I would only worry that if she does like a cafe with Mel without a administrative representative, then it might not go smoothly. I would just say if she wants to do something like that, it should involve a library admin as part of that as well, so that there's no miscommunication, you know?
I would agree, yeah.
So that's it. That's all I got on that.
I don't know what's the, the right way, whether a social media post or even a flyer in the cafe or something, I don't know what's the right approach, but, I would just suggest that, that we could probably present it in a way that was, not defensive, defensively responding to, criticisms or whatever, but just more in the vein of, about the cafe, and it could describe, the efforts that the library, made to serve the patrons better by doing this and whatever, and explain the whole thing or whatever, but not coming from a defensive side of, that looks like we're responding to criticism, but more like, oh, here's some information you might like to know, and frame it in that way, which,
Yeah, that sounds good.
Maybe in the newsletter.
yeah, I don't know where's the right place, but, yeah.
Melanie was saying something today, and I can't exactly remember the details, but the newsletter would be a perfect venue, and or like a weekly email blast as part of that, which is mostly just electronic as opposed to paper. But Melanie was talking about a way to have a QR code in the newsletter or the weekly email that would then take you to an online space, which would fully explain why we have a cafe and how it developed in response to patron inquiries and so forth, without, the newsletter writing process is writing and composing and editing process is very labor intensive. So, maybe this online thing that Melanie suggested with, a QR code that takes up a little bit of newsletter space, but then takes someone to would you like to know more about our cafe? Scan this code and take you to a web page, or I'll have to get back to her on that suggestion. But I think this is a wonderful discussion. I can't quite summarize it except to say that I believe that the cafe is our ally, that we're teammates. I mean, yes, we are their landlord, but I'm always, doing things like saying, hey, Melanie, we have a bus trip to New York City on December 1st to December 8th. If you'd like to open up early, you'll probably sell a lot of sandwiches and coffee. And so always trying to, work with them to try to help them be more successful. Because it's in me as the director and us as the library administration, it's in our best interest for the vendor to succeed. It would be, of course, a board decision if the vendor didn't succeed, what to do next. And one option that does exist is that the vending machine companies can do sort of high-end vending machines that have sandwiches in them and so forth, and you can have automatic coffee machines and so forth, kind of a self-service cafe. It would not be nearly as pleasant and friendly as the current one is. It would just give people the option to get a bag of chips or a sandwich or coffee, push a button to get your French vanilla cream or whatever. So to me, what we're doing now is much preferable to that. But as Mike said, finding a vendor was tough. And part of that was it was during COVID. And like one vendor was very interested, but turned us down because he had 2 cafes already. And he said, can't get people to work in those 2. So while I would love to have this 3rd one, I would just have more need for labor that I didn't have. And I think that situation might be improving a bit. There was a lot of economic turmoil during COVID. So though unemployment is low, which suggests that it would be hard to find people to work. And we're having that problem hiring folks in our field, but it might not be as hard next time, but it wouldn't be easy either. So,
It's premature to,
yeah, it is premature. Yeah.
why don't we, in the newsletter, I don't know what a QR code is, but whatever that is. Why don't we do something like Meet Melanie?
Mhm.
Do a little paragraph
event.
and say for more information and turn it into a positive.
Sure.
This is the person who is running the cafe and this is a little bit about her.
And I would go to that as well if it were before the end of my time here, and I'm sure Natalie already would.
So
If it was after
you know,
January.
it would be like introducing the cafe
Sure.
and the person who wants it.
And, there's a lot of, point out what you had said that it was the #1 patron request. And, also that it allowed us to restart the book sales and, just.
Becomes a PR
I
base.
think maybe have the Ultimate Enterprise come by and give an interview. How's the library, how's the,
That's pretty much what I meant.
Yeah.
how's the cafe doing, half year out?
Yeah.
Something of that nature, and, go back and tell the story as part of the questioning that comes at it, right? I mean, multiple venues are gonna be necessary to get the word out. Some people read the newspaper, some people read Ultimate Enterprise. You're not gonna cover everybody. So,
I like the idea of having something on site that you could scan or just have something displayed on a flyer. Because that's basically any of this negative feedback has come in person.
Mhm.
I haven't seen anything online. I don't think you have either.
No.
Social media or anything of that nature. So
We post a lot. Like she has her own
Yeah.
social media, plus like Sarah and I think Luann, like if we have a nice looking lunch, we'll take a picture and put it on our Facebook page. Not necessarily the libraries. You don't want to do that every day with the library page, but we're doing what we can as individuals to promote the business. So, I like all these solutions, so we'll do a combination of them. I do have one other item to ask you about as part of my director's report. We are doing our staff holiday party on Friday, January 19th. And for the last couple of years, we've found that it's been hard to do a staff holiday party before New Year's, just because everybody's so busy. We would like to request that you consider allowing us to close at 5 instead of 6 that day. When a lot of the staff leaves at 5, they don't come back for evening staff morale type events. And I would obviously need that vote sometime tonight. Put it as the last line of my new business or of my director's report. And I also wrote it on my agenda under new business if you prefer to deal with it at the end of the meeting. Yeah.
Totally unrelated question. On your report, could you sort of fluff out some of the details? It says you met with Nat and different staff members to discuss organizational reorganization. I know Marcia's asked about that a number of times.
Right.
And physical reorganization. What do you mean by physical reorganization?
So when we built the lactation room is one. We are.
That's not a department.
No, it's not a department. We have, as of today, asked Natalie to move Luann to move the location of her office so that we could bring Nate into the admin suite. And then we had named Kathleen Terrell as the head of the circulation department. She moved into Nate's office in the circulation department, which he was in temporarily because it was the only open space that we had. So we've asked Natalie and sorry, Luann and Maria Buell both moved their spots into the area that Lisa Pitkin was in, the tech area, and worked together as a new department of marketing and outreach, promotions and outreach. And I don't know, somebody here might know when Maria is planning what's coming up with
Early
it.
January.
Early January.
And that's just to follow up on that. With the influx of new staff into the PPS department, there just simply aren't enough desks back there to seat everyone. And so this was partially precipitated by that, to get folks seated, basically. So we had to figure out where to seat people, and how to use the space that we have to make room for everybody.
I would also say,
IT person, not the IT, the circulation.
yeah, is in the circ department.
But then Luann is gonna be out of the inner loop, so to speak, and be down.
I moved down to, so I'm gonna be with Maria. So Maria and I are gonna be collaborating.
Do you remember when Lisa's department, or where Lisa's department was, like sort of by the back door across from me?
Across from,
Yeah, yeah.
maintenance.
So, yep. We needed to get Maria's space because people have been hired in the PBS department and we're hiring more part-time as opposed to full-time. So it changed the calculus of how many desks there are. So it's a move that involves 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 people, but nobody's job is really changing. It's just the location of their job. And I'm personally kind of, even though I'm not going to be here, kind of excited about the concept of, Maria and Luann are both extraordinary people and workers. And in Maria's new role as outreach librarian, as opposed to adult programs librarian, which is now Christina Ronald, I see a certain synergy between the work that those two do. And so having them physically together, number one, I think helps with outreach and marketing. Luann, for example, we've seen photos of her before at Towson Bar. She's a representative to the Chamber of Commerce and so forth. Very good at that sort of work as well. But it just solved a number of problems. And nobody enjoys picking up all their stuff and moving down the hall, certainly. But Luann has approached it, and Maria have both approached it with a constructive, team-oriented.
You're gonna be in the same office?
They're going to be in the same room, but not like right on top of each other.
So Luann's not gonna have an office and Maria's not gonna have an office?
They're both going to have like a
Cubicles
type office.
as opposed to offices.
Yeah. Which Maria, was agreed with, and Luann agreed with. It's not perfect. I mean, would you like to build an office for everybody? Sure. But it was a pretty creative way, I thought, of solving.
Well, she has an office, but now she's gonna have a cubicle.
Yeah, and today was the day she, so.
So how was it Margaret? It used to be Margaret's office. Natalie's there.
Yeah. David and Jackie are in the fiscal office, and the administrative assistant will be
So
for
who
Jenna.
took the other office?
I'm in the other office, so
Yeah, Nate.
as an administrator,
Yeah.
trying to be an
You took that
administrator
one?
working in the center of a
You
staff
covered
hub. It's
2
really
assistants.
Yeah.
And that's what that comment was
So we expect a reorg
about. Report.
presentation in January.
Are we on track, do you think?
Yeah, I think we can definitely do that. Yeah.
So,
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Understanding, to say the truth.
But there are a lot of moving parts,
Yeah,
so,
which I for one don't understand.
yeah. I understand that you
You don't
don't
understand.
necessarily understand. I'm sorry.
I don't know if you have a chance to read my report. There's a
I
little
thought your
bit of
report was
background.
excellent.
So there's some background on why some things need
I
changed.
picked up one piece of this reorg, which I don't understand. So I'd appreciate sooner rather than later.
Sure.
May I make I don't even know if we need a motion, but I think the board should recognize the work of John Lorang for 8 years
Yeah,
and to to thank him for his service. It sounds like a military thing, but I don't mean it that way. That's a bit. And to wish him well in his new job.
Well, he was of a piece really with the other two gentlemen in that department who are calm, patient problem solvers, they're budget conscious. And they're just like, the only time the wheel squeaks is when it really needs to squeak, you know? So I mean, they're like a real gift to me as an administrator. So I appreciate that. I don't know if you want to do the motion or not, but I can't do motions, so.
I'll make a motion that we recognize John Lorang for 8 years of wonderful service and how helpful he's been,
I'll gladly second that one.
and wish him well in his new job.
Great asset.
And the search for a replacement has begun with, as of yesterday, 8 or 9 applications, correct?
Yes.
So, so then the only other thing I have on the director's report is if you'd like to entertain a motion about that closure at 5 p.m. on Friday.
We have a
Motion you
motion
made
right
an
now on the
actual
floor to rec-
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
Is the motion, you made an actual motion because we need a vote.
Yeah,
Under new business, it should.
We need to
Well,
vote on the
this is
John
motion
Lorang.
on
I mean, obviously.
yeah.
We're all.
John
Sorry.
Lorang's service. So, all in favor of recognizing, his 8 years of service?
Thank you, John.
Aye.
All right, so recognized at 7:02 p.m. Wishing him the best of luck in his new position. Looks like a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it does sound like a big job.
All right, is there anything else? Oh, that's right. Are we going to vote on closing at 5 on January 19th, or we're gonna wait till new business? We could do it either way.
New business.
Okay, we'll wait till new business. All right, any further questions?
I have a couple questions.
Tim?
Tim, the New York Library Association conference, 4 days of that, how many people we sent?
I think about 7. The only 2 who stayed overnight were Nate and not Natalie, because they were conference planners and on the committees and so forth. And they were basically busy all day long, but that conference is almost always in Saratoga. And like most of us who go, just come back, you know, rather than staying overnight and you know, like Saratoga's not too far away. But if you've got a role in the conference, I do support that.
I would just ask, was there any, you know, 4 days is a long conference, type of discussion of materials that speak to any of the committees that we have, that people on the board would be advised to know of, sort of like for example, one-way planning, other new insights coming out of this nature that speak to, here's what the New York body thinks about where you should be.
So the first answer I'll give you is that both Natalie and Nate address the sessions that they went to in the conference. And I forget which of you, but one of you, or maybe both of you also presented sessions.
I presented.
Okay, and then several of our librarians presented papers or sessions. I love the idea myself of board members actually going to the conference. Do you know, Nate, if that happens much?
There's actually a trustees section, I believe, or a roundtable, which there's a group. And so there specifically are sessions at conference for trustees. There's also always a great keynote that gives you a really good idea of ideas that are happening in libraries right now. I always find that very stimulating. And there's tons about, you know, friends groups and, you know, foundations, and there's just a lot of great content that I think sending a trustee or two would be a good idea.
And also, the librarians that work here have to get a certain number of CEs every 5 years. So that's one reason, continuing ed credits, that's one reason we send people. You may have noticed the last couple of years, I haven't gone. That's because I already knew everything. So, just kidding. But at any rate, the professional development money that we have is limited. My understanding is we're not overspent on that budget line, but you know, you want to spend it carefully because we also occasionally send people to national conferences like the Public Library Association or the American Association. And I do not recall off the top of my head when the last time that was, that we sent someone to one of those, but I think it was within the last 2 to 3 years. But it's in the first week of November, the NILA conference every year. And what I can ask Nate to do is to make sure you guys all get a copy of the schedule next year.
So in terms of like, is there like a book of proceedings that you come out with on that, or is that?
So there's a conference app that where you can keep track of what sessions you've been to. And then NILA does collect up the presentations from the presenters and makes those available to the people who attended. Is there something you're looking for?
Well, I would just say, like I said, we have all these committees, and I would imagine that some of the discussion at these conferences has got to be about things that affects the committee.
Absolutely.
We, as trustees, basically getting the benefit of, your attendance. We have 7 people attend. Are we getting feedback into the trustees about, here's some things we picked up that speak to your committee that would be helpful in your execution of that?
So we haven't done that in the past, but I like that idea.
Just way to leverage. I mean, if we just go to these conferences and
Go.
the stuff just stays with
And
them
then come
because
back, yeah.
But the benefit is to take things back.
Also with the national conferences, we've had more requests in recent years than, like, if I split my 10-year career into 2 parts, I had more requests to go to those in the second 5 years than in the first 5 years. And I've been, suggesting, although I haven't been able to get to actually creating a procedure, but suggesting that if you go to a conference, you then present what you learned back to the rest of the staff here. And if we did that, we could certainly include board members in that, where that way you'd only have to come down the street as opposed to driving to Saratoga. Is it in Saratoga next year?
I think it is next. Oh, it might be in Syracuse next year.
It goes to Saratoga and Syracuse, and like once in a blue moon, it'll be on Long Island or something, but mostly we make them come up here.
Yeah, I think it's like 3 years in a row. It's usually in Saratoga, and then it goes somewhere else in the state. So we're lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
But it's usually in our backyard.
We've been able to get a lot out of it without spending a lot because we just send people up on that day or and when you say it's a 4-day conference, yes, it is. But a lot of our librarians who go might go on 1 or 2 of the days just based on what presentations are. There's also a vendor hall, which is would be a good experience for board members to see what technology and so forth is available.
I would imagine that the Upper Hudson system is there represented as well.
Yeah, they're almost the host, I would say. Like NILA's the host, but all the different systems send people, or most of them do. But Tim Burke and his staff are pretty visible at that. So they help, with the organizing of the packets, distribution, and so forth. So I like your idea.
No, these things are all about best practice sharing more than anything. And the extent that we can leverage that back, it says that, us spinning our wheels trying to think about things when there's a whole group of professionals out there that have insights on.
Plus, if you, as board members, I could see you having the schedule and picking one day to go up. And, you go to 4 or 5 sessions and you also get to have lunch in Saratoga or something.
Right, exactly.
So, and if it's a nice day, you can stroll up and down Broadway.
Then I just have another question, Sean, your IT summary. Was this a banner year for IT work, or a year from now, do we see a report that is like sort of similarly? There's pretty heavy stuff in there.
Yeah, it was, off the top of my head, I'd have to look back and see what we did last year. This was the first time we did like a year in review. So it's kind of hard to answer that, but.
I'm full of ideas on the way out, but I kind of would like to suggest that next year in December, all the director's reports or department head reports become a review of a year, So you could do it in December or you could do it in June with the fiscal year, whichever works, or you can do it both times. I should stifle the tendency to come up with suggestions that means somebody else is going to have to do some work. But anyway.
It was a good summary. I appreciated the complexity that Tim introduced, running the IT department here, which is such complex.
There was probably a moment, certainly before my time here, where a director went to the board and said, I think we need to hire an IT person. And I do not mean, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but there were probably some people on the board at that time who were like, really, why would you need an IT person? And now you've got 3 working full time. And, I do ask Sean every year, do you need a part timer? Like, I mean, are we covering all of our bases? And, there's when you're an IT head like Sean is, like, I don't know how they sleep at night with all the cyber crime and all that, because those cyber criminals are infinitely creative, and they now have like AI to help them generate their scams and so forth. And to try to stay ahead of that, I'm sorry to put it this way, but it's probably literally impossible. But yet you have to do your best at it, So whack-a-mole. Yep. So anyway.
All right. So if there's nothing further, maybe we should move on to committee reports.
I'm going to just go get a lozenge. I'm not sick, but I want to have another coughing report
Okay.
so I'll be back.
Elise, do you feel up to giving a building and grounds report?
Or did you want me to do some of that, Alicia?
I mean, I can give the gist of it. I know we're waiting on some things, which is why we haven't done a meeting this month. I anticipate we're going to be doing one in January. I already kind of gave the insight on the cafe, so I won't rehash all that. The other thing we're waiting on is the HVAC quote. So no movement on that, which is another reason I'm hoping to get that in January so that we can have a productive committee meeting in January. The one thing that did happen though in between that was moving in a direction on one of our items that we had targeted as a goal to accomplish is the mural. Tim and I met virtually with Tony from the Capitol Walls project, and he gave us a rundown of sort of how that project and process works. So currently our next steps is, and I don't know, Tim, if you got an email, but I didn't from him, but he was going to send us some artists to start off with as a jumping point. Did you get something?
No, I don't have that yet. So, but I want to point out and save you for just a bit. If people looked up through this window and saw that large beige space right there, there's an equivalent one at the other end of the main reading room. That's the primary location we're kind of thinking about for a large eye-catching mural, in part because while we do get 95% good reviews of the renovation and so forth, it's very beige, very sort of monochromatic. And so we kind of would like some dramatic, celebratory, piece of art to kind of break up all the beige. Even the conference table is beige. So.
Hey, Tim, have we thought of, I know that would be a big project, but the kids at the high school. do
We have been in touch.
phenomenal.
Yeah, we have
And
been
I
in
know
touch.
we had the one in the hallway.
Yeah.
Would you ever want to give them a shot at proposing?
We have given them a shot and they've declined to propose. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, and we also talked to this artist who paints Guilderland stuff, whose painting is right behind you. Her proposal was very expensive. So we said, thanks, but we can't do that. So, and whoever paints it, including nobody, but if you go in this direction, there are 2 options. One is to paint directly on the wall. The other is to paint on some sort of material and then mount it on the wall. And we discussed that with the high school, with this artist and with Tony, because it may be easier to paint it without being 25 feet in the air while you paint it. So, but that's, an expertise question. But, and I don't want to cast the school district's art department in a bad light, but I think curriculum planning is more than just calling and saying, hey, can you do a mural sometime next year? Like, they talked about it at their department meeting and decided to pass on the opportunity. So,
We're also dealing with a pipe coming down.
Right, but there are no pipes on the other end, so. Yeah. Although one of the artists they showed us had done an outdoor mural that incorporated the pipe that was in that particular spot, like there was this giant bird and it was holding on to the pipe while, or something like that. It was really cool stuff. I would assume, Alicia, when we do get that email, we share it at least with the Buildings and Grounds Committee, if not the whole board. The whole board should probably see it to see what we're talking about, what kind of work we're talking about, I would guess. So, anyway.
Yeah, so I might have to just send a reminder to Tony to send that those suggestions out to us, because that was sort of our jumping point. And then we were going to get sort of a group together to sort of come up with ideas for which direction we want the mural to go into, and sort of what kind of art styles and stuff like that to sort of narrow it down.
We
So
talked about history and nature and books and learning and various
Yep.
other sort of general areas
Yeah.
of, content.
yeah, we gave them some general ideas, some sort of like the wall tone, so that there's different artists that fit different aesthetics. So I was supposed to get a list of like 5 or 6 artists to sort of start with, and then we can see sort of their you know murals they've done for inspiration and come up with ideas for what we wanted. I think we did discuss that. I thought I had written an email to the board, but maybe I didn't. Maybe it was a narrower audience, but I had like a kind of a breakdown of all this. But we had like a pretty long call and a lengthy discussion where we got some insight on like sort of the brainstorming process and what like some do's and don'ts were from his point of view, that he noticed time and time again doing this, and some parts of the process that get problematic. And I think we came up with we weren't going to open this up to like the community to like anybody submit like an idea for this and it get voted on, because it could potentially go against things that we would prefer to prioritize in alignment with our mission and stuff. So we felt that the committee we put together could propose some ideas, and then the artists do their interpretation, and there's an approval process that goes back and forth where they submit like a mock-up, and we make changes, whatever. So basically where we're at is we got sort of a rough cost estimate. They said that it'd probably be around 10 to 12,000 depending on the artist, because some charge more for being high up in the air versus on the ground, which is why there's a little bit of a waiver, and then just depending on the artist themselves. But that's sort of the budget we're looking at, and I think we have to also identify where the funding is going to come from. So I guess that's something I might need to follow up with Tim on to figure out if we're going to pursue a grant versus requesting assistance from the foundation, or however we're going to approach that. So it's kind of in a fact finding stage right now, as well as getting some of the artist referrals that we can start taking a look at their work.
And that was the only other thing with Buildings and Grounds, right?
As far as I know, I think the only other things that you had mentioned to me before I've resolved, I think the like sort of hanging chads, right, where there was some landscaping stuff that need to get resolved. I don't know if you did that with the trees or something.
All
right?
done, all done.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was remembering was most of that stuff had sort of resolved. There's the snow, was it the snow blower or the
Correct.
lawnmower? One of them, we ended up trying to get it fixed and it didn't get fixed, so we're getting it replaced.
Yeah, we've already replaced it. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, that's the only thing I can think of.
Okay.
So yeah. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on that, but it's kind of early stages, so I can't even say that there's anything super concrete at the moment. We just had our initial call with Tony, and we're just waiting on some inspiration to sort of start off with. And I could just say that we did kind of give him from the jump what I figured would be kind of unanimous with folks on things we want to avoid, but we just we didn't want to paint anything up there that would almost instantaneously age poorly or become sort of notably dated fairly quickly. So, and then, painting any particular people or figures, sets you up for potentially having someone up there that 5 years later, something gets discovered bad about them and then they're painted up on your wall. You know what I mean? So we figured we'd go more with like nature, something with Guilderland, something, more not abstract per se, but not a personification of anything. So, and that was sort of the advisement of Tony as well. So,
Thanks, Leash.
yep, no worries. Hopefully have more updates pretty soon.
All right, Corey, are you up to, your reports? Or-
Sure. I'm gonna power through these pretty quickly. I'm not feeling super great and I know we're already running a little long. So I intended to get a written long range planning, but life gets in the way. So I'll just go over the long range planning committee did meet this month. And we discussed a variety of things, including our next steps. We solicited staff participation in the long range planning process in a variety of different ways, including adding a couple of staff members to the long range planning committee. And we also had Narina share a call to the foundation to see if there was anyone interested. We were hoping to have those members identified, but I think that we need to give a little bit more time. The staff members that, and there's nothing wrong with this, but all of the staff volunteers that we got from the library were department heads or in administration. And I think that we're really seeking someone from that focuses more on the staff side of the role also to join. So we'll probably ask to have that resent out and then formulate, but we would like to add a couple of people formally to the committee. And hopefully we can do that informally and have them join us in January for a long range planning committee meeting. If that is okay with the board, and then formally add them onto the committee at the January meeting when we have those names. Are there any concerns with us informally adding them to the committee for an upcoming meeting and then formalizing that in January? All is quiet, so I assume there are no concerns. And then our next steps are to create the surveys, and we want to involve those new members of the committee as well as the current members who are all board members who are officially on the committee in creating the short surveys that will go to the staff, that will go to the community, that will go to the board members, the foundation, and other groups that we identify. And we will follow that up with a series of potentially one-on-one meetings or focus groups in order for us to get that plan formulated. So that's where we're at right now. We'll be meeting again in January. If anyone else would like to participate, you're welcome to come. You just won't have a vote when it comes to actually for the committee voting. That's all I have for long range planning. I'm just going to go through the next couple unless there's any questions or comments on that. So the finance committee's meeting that typically would have happened on Tuesday was canceled. I was not feeling well and we were not able to gather a quorum. I think most of what we would have discussed was covered in the reports that that George sent out and shared with everybody. But are there any other questions? And then I have added those two notes for us to discuss in January that were brought up earlier about the money that we would potentially owe back due to the Crossgates issue being resolved, and CDs and interest rates, and whether or not we should be converting any money to that to the finance committee meeting in January. Any other questions or comments? Audit committee has not yet met. I mentioned earlier when Tim brought it up, the one thing that we are waiting on for the audit to be completed is to get that statement from an attorney about the capital funds And so we are waiting. George has been the one that has been in contact with the attorney. And so we're waiting for that to be final and to, excuse me, get the letter from them so it can be passed on and we can have the audit approved. We recognize that there is some rush to have this done because we can't have multiple years open in our accounting books. We can only have 2 years at a time. And so we need to get this accomplished soon. So hopefully we will have that back in early January so we can move on with that. And finally, the Upper Hudson, and also we are still seeking another member of the public for the audit committee. So please pass along if you know of anybody that would like to participate. Please pass their name along to me and contact information, and I will reach out and talk to them about it.
And I'll jump in just for the board members to say that it requires professional expertise in accounting, but it's a very low level commitment. You just have to review one audit, which probably means going to either 1 or 2 meetings. It's not anything like being a board member, for example.
Pass your friends, family, neighbors along that you know might have some expertise and be willing to do this to me, and I'll reach out to them. And my third one on there is Upper Hudson Library System. As normal, the Upper Hudson Library System Board canceled their December meeting, so I have nothing to report from them.
Thanks, Cory. Let's see, I think we have some policies to discuss. Marina.
Yeah, I think it's in your packet already. I did do a brief report. It's not a policy per se, but we do have it on the website. It's called Rules of Public Behavior. And we needed to amend specifically paragraph 15 of it on page 2 to address certain issues with the patron who was using the computer for what we thought was inappropriate use and potentially exposing minors to inappropriate content. More on that in the report itself. But basically, the staff had suggested this change and agreed that this change would solve the problem and how to address particular patron or other patrons who might be using the computers similarly in inappropriate ways. I think it's in black and white, so you can't see the changes, but it used to read prohibits obscene, abusive, or threatening. Oh yeah, that's okay. So it used to be the first sentence. We changed it to the second sentence right under by adding the words lewd and the words or sexually harassing and then language or behavior. And the staff did agree that that would, satisfy their needs in addressing this kind of behavior. We're just going to need a motion to make those changes.
Okay, if anyone want to make a motion to approve the changed policy? Second, Bill? Okay, is there any further discussion about the policy other than what Marina has informed us?
I just had a question. I wondered if the committee had looked into what other libraries are doing and similar. I know that this is an issue that's been this is an issue that libraries all over the place have been dealing with, and I wondered if there was any, because I did a little bit of, just research on this, and it seems like there's a variety of different approaches that different libraries take, and I wondered, what you found as far as that.
So we looked at, I think, the New York State Sonila policies, but we also looked at other libraries in the area and their policies. And certainly there is a lot of variety in how they approach the issue. They have a computer policy. We also have a computer policy, but it doesn't deal with that. We also have public behavior. We talked about all of that. And we decided this was the best way to address it at this time. So I guess that satisfied the need for us there, but we did look at a lot of other ones too.
And maybe this is good for now, but I think it's something we should look into, because I did see that I saw some legal guidance that suggested that the most legally sound way to deal with this was to not focus on the content, but on the effect on patrons and staff. So to frame it in terms of, creating harassing, environment, a workplace environment, or for the other patrons or whatever. So it's directed at the effect it has on other people rather than trying to define the content.
Yeah.
Because that gets you into more, potential First Amendment problems and just, difficulties of definition. But
Yeah,
it was this kind of
Gonna address this.
kind of does both, right? So it's like, anyway, I don't have any particular issue with it, but I just think it's something because it's going to be a continuing issue and it is an open question that different libraries are doing different things on. So we should, address it more, more, I don't know, just to reconsider it at some point in the future.
Yeah, I think if it comes up again and it's not sufficient, it's not addressing the issue, certainly we can look at it again. In the report, you'll see what other policies we are intending to address next. So there is quite a few of them
Yeah.
that we have to look at. So I'm just gonna try to do at least one or two. I think these are listed in the order that I've wanted to go through them. So, it depends, there's a problem with the change in the rule of public behavior, and it's not addressing the staff's concern, then we'll relook at that as well. Is there any other comment?
Any further discussion? Yeah. All in favor of the approving the amended policy, please signify by saying aye. Is there any- So it says at 7.
Yeah, so I'll just go right into foundation. I wasn't able to make it. Hopefully, Tim has an update on that.
So the foundation meeting was held in this room, and foundation president Steve Waxman is stepping down as foundation president, but I believe intends to remain on the foundation. I intend to rejoin the foundation in February. I was president of the foundation when I applied for the job here as director. I'm not going to be president anytime soon, but I may do that in the future if it's needed. They are working on picking a golf tournament date. We should have that by their next meeting, which is next Thursday. And what else? So the nominating committee of the foundation is circulating an email list right now to see who might want to be the president, vice president, and secretary, and treasurer. And I think that was about it. They had at that meeting or on the day of that meeting, given the library checks that were reimbursements for things that they had agreed to fund that were, I believe, roughly 11,000, which is a huge, generous donation. Very much appreciated, but of course, means that they have to go back and refresh their coffers. So, that's what I can remember from the meeting. It was well attended, and I don't think there's any net loss of number of members, although, as Corey mentioned regarding the audit committee, if you know anybody who wants to get involved in the library in sort of a board member light type version, because it's nowhere near as much work as you guys do, we really could use some new bodies on the foundation. It's about 8 or 9 core people that do all the work, 16 people total. And it functions a lot better with about 20 to 25 people on it. So maybe the foundation will, connect with Luann. They have their own Facebook page as well, but ask for a little ad newsletter or something to try to recruit more folks. But I'm sort of speaking theoretically, but it could use more people. That's all I remember from the meeting.
So, hi, anything with personnel?
Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. I don't want to suggest that you do a motion, but I do want to publicly thank Steve Waxman because he's been the most active and productive president of the foundation that I've seen since 2010 when I joined, and really has raised a ton of money and done great work. So I thank Steve for running that foundation for 3 or 4 years. And as you all probably know, he's a very community-minded guy. So he may not be the president of the foundation anymore, but I'm sure he'll be raising money for someone. So,
Yeah, I join you in thanking him. He's a great, efficient president. He tackles a lot of issues very quickly and so we're lucky to have him on that.
all right.
Thank you for your service. So, Mike, anything with personnel?
No, the personnel committee did not meet this month and neither did the labor management.
Okay. That was an easy report. See, anything with board developments, Barbara?
We have not been this month.
Okay. Now we have, search committee, which I think
Yeah.
we have to create search committee, I believe, because the ad hoc committee was tasked with only 1 or 2 things, just to do a schedule and do a posting. So I think we need a search committee to do what's actually on the schedule to do all these things that are necessary to, once we get, responses to our postings, actually, I guess virtually interview some, the most qualified applicants and then select maybe no more than 3 for board interviews. So is that what my understanding is? So, my understanding is we need to actually create a search committee as opposed to an ad hoc committee. Is that what you were saying, Marcia?
The ad hoc committee was tasked by the board to 2 things. One is to develop a job description to be posted for the position of library director, which we've done. And also to put together an outline of what processes to be followed by the search committee. Which is obviously a suggested process is the search committee will decide what they want to do in the process. But it was just, those are the 2 things we were tasked with. And you should have copies of both of those in draft pending approval by the.
Is that in the packet?
It's separate.
I think Sarah said she was gonna make copies for the boxes. I don't know if she was able to do that, but I sent it in an email yesterday.
Yes, there's, I have a copy.
They're from the mailboxes.
If anybody's missing a copy, I can grab somebody's copy and go back. and
Would
make
you,
it.
Tim?
I have an extra.
Okay.
I have.
Thank you.
So how many do we need? 1 per Barbara.
You don't have one? Underneath your back.
Copy 1.
Do you want to, can you forward me that? Sarah? Okay, and then I'll go print it.
So 2 things,
Oh, you're gonna get it? Okay.
Just email to me.
the process and
How many
the posting.
In my box.
Just one, I got it. Oh, my,
Just, it's in your box, right?
And she had one in her box.
Well, there are 2, right? Yeah, 2.
my QB is.
No, but there should be 2 documents.
Yeah, they're both there.
Oh.
Maybe, yes, they're both there.
Okay, I guess the ad hoc committee, Corey, Marcia, Barbara. So I don't know if the same committee would like to be the actual search committee to accomplish all of that work to, interview people and, go through resumes and just decide like who's qualified, because sometimes I know from maybe several superintendent searches, but sometimes we would get like, say, a teacher, like, with no administrative experience, just throw it in a resume, so sometimes you get like people who are not actually, don't meet your qualifications, but, so you can, I guess, shoot them up with letter. Oh, sorry, we can't,
Thank you.
or whatever.
At our meeting, y'all did volunteer ourselves if you wanted.
Oh, okay, so the same committee would be interested in being the search committee? Okay,
We also included in the process that the search committee could be 4 to 5 members. So the 4 of us are willing to continue on. But if there is someone else that wants to participate, that could be included as well.
okay. And now I'm like ex officio, but I'm not an actual member of the committee, so is there anybody else who's interested in joining the search committee? Interested to participate, because we have a committee, of 4 people, so, is there a motion to, I guess, disband the ad hoc committee and change it to a search committee? Is that, okay, Marcia? Second?
Second.
Okay, is there discussion about this, change from the ad hoc committee to a full search committee? And the members would be Corey,
Yeah.
Marcia, Barbara, and Alicia. Is there any, discussion? Okay, all in favor of establishing a search committee of Corey, Marcia, Barbara, and Alicia, please signify by saying aye.
Can I just put my, I'll join as the 5th member.
Great. So it would be Corey, Marcia, Barbara, and Bill. All in favor of the committee with the addition of Bill, please say aye. Anyone object? All right, so we have established search committee as of 7:42 p.m. All right, so you guys got a lot of work to do at some point.
I think the other piece of this is that we need to vote on the job description itself.
Right, I just have one question about the job description. Because it has a lot of about the position. Then it has about Guilderland Public Library, and then it has about the community. And then it goes back to minimum requirements for experience and how to apply. We're just kind of wondering if minimum requirements for experience and how to apply would be before the descriptions about the library and the community, because it seems like we're going on about like everything about our library and our community, and then we suddenly go back to the requirements. That was the only question I had, like why you did it that way.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Corey.
No, I'll just add in the first piece, which is we just sort of followed the format that most of the other examples that we saw had as far as the structure of it. But Marcia or Barbara might be able to speak to this more.
So that was the way they did it. They did like first of all, what the position is, then about the library, then about the community, and then the minimum requirements for the position.
Yeah, the sample descriptions from Upper Hudson Library System, along with the sample descriptions that I pulled off of the ALA job list, which is the national job bank. They were all formatted relatively similarly in terms of position community, position library community requirements experience.
I have a theory why they're set up that, not a theory, but a pretty good guess. But basically you want to lay out all the information first so that the person can really digest, is this like a good fit for me? Is this sounding like something I'm interested in, before they go into like qualifications, right? So you give sort of a robust picture of the position as well as the culture that they're getting into. And then they can check off, yeah, that sounds like something I could do. And then they go down to the qualifications. Do I meet all the, the nitty gritty, right? I think that's why those are formatted that way, because I think a lot of job descriptions are set up that way as well, from what I've seen.
Okay, that's fine, that was just the only question that I had. About the specifics about it, but, it looks good, I mean.
So it's a fair question. It is kind of an interesting setup, but that's sort of the thought process behind it, and probably why I never questioned it, because I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You get the full picture, and then the person either goes immediately, yeah, I'm interested, or no, I'm not, and then they go to the qualifications, and then that weeds it down another layer.
Corey and Alicia, I know we talked about this, but after I got home, one of the position descriptions is the director administers personnel policies and conducts annual performance reviews of staff members. Should we clarify that it would be like the administrative team and maybe department heads, because the department heads really, I think, in most organizations are responsible for evaluating the staff under them and then reporting to the director. But did that give too broad a brush for what the duties would be or not?
You could just change staff to direct reports. Would that make it clear?
You could change conducts to overseas.
That's true.
Maybe the first sentence in that paragraph says in collaboration with the assistant directors and department heads. So maybe if you tied that last sentence to that first, library director manages a staff of 70+ employees, including conducting annual performance reviews of staff members, something like that. So it's not saying the director does it, but the director in collaboration with the other administrator, something like that. I don't know.
I could just change conducts to overseas, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that works too. That's fine. I have one very minor edit. Then in the about Guilderland Public Library at the bottom of the first page, says governed by an 11-person elected board of trustees. That's only accurate for the next 6 months. So maybe we just drop 11-person and just say governed by an elected board of trustees.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
And we left it in there as 11-person because that's what we currently are and probably what they would be hired as, but maybe just governed by an elected board of trustees.
Yeah.
would be fine.
Yeah, that'll be that way until June.
So, but if
Yeah,
you say it's
just
by
say
an elected board of
Elected
trustees,
That's
whatever it is, it
yeah,
is. If
we're just gonna.
Our
Oh.
names are publicly available on the website, so I'm sure that anybody that's interested would go look to see. The other piece of this that we put in there was the salary range, and that's a portion of what the board would need to approve. Of course, it's one line in here, but that's a portion of approving this job description.
That dollar amount, you guys competitive in this, how did we establish how that was, that was competitive?
We had a list of libraries along with the salaries. This kind of fit right. Thought it should be for the size of this particular library.
Tim Burke was very helpful
Yeah,
from
we
the
met with him.
Upper Hudson. He brought a list of libraries, how many years people have been in positions, their salaries, the size of the library, size of the budget. And we had a couple of others other areas, not our own. And he felt that that was certainly was well within the range of getting a good person.
That's the key. In terms of attracting.
Yeah, especially if they're moving to somewhere else. Because we may not, if we get someone from some other part of the state too. I guess that's the idea, to kind of go out and search as much as possible.
Is there a motion?
There a motion to approve the library director posting as edited.
Motion.
Marina,
Mike second.
Mike second.
And we were discussing January 2nd as date.
January 2nd.
Yeah, the process for it.
That it would have to be returned by, what was it, 30th, 31st?
I think so.
We have it in the processing. The posting date.
So any further discussion?
I'm just curious, is there any reason to, if we've approved the posting, to wait until January 2nd to post it? Rather than just posting it right away? I don't know. I'm just curious.
Was only the guidance from Tim Burke, who said that with the holidays, nobody's gonna be looking for it.
All right.
And they suggested, after the first of the year. I mean, I have no objection to posting it earlier, but
I would just think that people on the holidays would be in the mode of thinking about what they're going to think about, because they probably have more relaxation time to ponder.
That's my thoughts too.
Whereas you go into
Make it sooner.
January,
Yeah, I mean,
back
if
in
we're
July.
ready.
Well, I think at this point, if no one objects, the people who are going to be the search committee, if we feel that
Let's do it on Monday.
works, we could do it earlier. I mean, it's just a suggestion.
Do it on Monday, Christmas Day.
The one,
Merry Christmas.
Christmas Day. Monday's Christmas Day.
Tuesday.
I'll do it now, like Marcia said, post it tomorrow.
So a couple of the places that we post would be done through Tim Burke. And I don't think that he would be posting until the new year.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I didn't hear what she said.
She said most of the postings will be done by Tim Burke,
Yeah,
and they're going to be down for the next week.
that's a
So-
good reason to do it January 2nd.
Yeah.
As
opposed to doing it on Christmas.
I think.
We
the,
just
the
don't
process-
have access to these and all these lists, and he does, so he'll be taking care of a lot of this for us.
Communications, right. The processing piece was a suggestion, and it's going to be up to the search committee, who of course put this together, to follow this and deviate as necessary. And Bill, obviously, take a look at this and any suggestions that you have. So,
All right, well, any more discussion about the posting? All in favor of the motion to approve the posting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objection? Right, it's approved as a 7:54 p.m. So we'll get that out there, I guess, by January 2nd. Sounds good. And then we've got a long list of things to do.
Are we approving the process too, or no?
it's a suggested process. I think probably we need to, I mean, if you can, but I think it's up to the search committee too. It's pretty standard, but
I think we've approved the committee and they've informed the board of at least the planned approach. I think as long as the committee is keeping the board appraised of their progress, I don't know if we need to, tie them down to, you have to do it in exactly these steps that we've laid out here. I think it'd be better to leave a little bit of flexibility with the search committee.
All right, well, I just want to thank the committee. That was a lot of work in a very short period of time. So,
Oh, yeah, we mentioned the executive session.
Right.
That's it, that's just right here.
Right.
All right. Okay, so we have gone through our committee report, so is there any old business? Moving on, I think the new business was, the request to close at 5 o'clock on January 19th for a staff holiday party.
I'll make that motion.
I'll say. And then, further discussion.
Just a question, does that mean that people that normally would work are still gonna get paid? Or they don't get paid? We can close, but do they still get paid? How does that work?
I guess they would be scheduled to leave at 5. Does that make sense to you, Nate? You
It
can't,
is a good question.
you can't pay them to go to a party, so, you know. Guess they would have to, that's a good question. We've done it before, so, I know that Jackie is watching, but I'm not sure if it was within the time that she's worked here. You don't recall.
You just shift them up an hour, shift them. Did that sentence make sense?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think that
sorry. I'm a little,
maybe
my
the
brain's
plan.
not working, but yeah. I guess as long as people aren't financially impacted, there's, it shouldn't be no problem, but you guys can figure that out, right?
Yeah, we can figure it out.
Yeah, but it can't be a gift of public money.
Right.
No, so either, you know, if people are able to come an hour early,
They are.
you ship their thing earlier, or else, you know, or else if they can't come earlier, then they lose an hour. But I mean, you can't pay them for hours, then library's not working.
Agreed.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to close at 5 o'clock on January 19th, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Okay.
Anyone opposed? Great, passes at.
Thank you.
Now we have need of an executive session.
Public input for.
Or did we use that already?
No, all's quiet on the public input front right now, so. All good.
Oh, I forgot the public input session, sorry.
No worries, no public input.
Okay. We had two. Okay, now we need of an executive session. So,
So Sean's here to stop the stream and stuff.
Yeah.
all right, well, we have to vote first
Oh,
to go into
okay, yeah,
executive
yeah.
session.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the MOA for interim library director.
Was that second, Irina? Okay, all in favor of entering the executive session? Discuss MOA for interim library director position. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are in executive session as of 7:58.
So for the virtual folks, we go to the other link, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, give me a second.
I presume 4 employees in the room are not needed.